Ring, ring, ring. These simple sounds will change my life forever. Hello, my name is Anthony Horowitz, and I'm a world-renowned author who has written many books, including the Alex Rider series, James Bond, Trigger Mortis, and Sherlock Holmes' House of Self. Well, to start from the beginning, why don't we talk about my childhood? I was born on April 5th, 1955, in Stanmore, England. I was born into a wealthy, Jewish, and successful family. When I was younger, I never enjoyed school. I attended a boarding school named Orley Farm at the age of 8, and I didn't like it there. Fortunately, I was lucky enough to leave and go to a public high school named Rugby at the age of 14. It was at Rugby when I discovered my love for writing. Once I discovered this, I knew my ultimate goal was to become some sort of writer. After graduating high school, I attended York University and majored in English literature and art history. Ring, ring, ring. The simple sound is when I found out that my father had died from cancer. But that wasn't all. He had also lost more than half of his fortune because he had placed most of his money under a false bank account. We were never able to track down the bank account, therefore we lost a lot of our money. Well, I had to move on with my life. So I graduated college and got my first job working as an advertising typewriter for Bedford News. My boss, Don White, helped me publish my first book at the age of 24, named The Sinister Secret of Frederick K. Bauer. Once I published this, my career took off. At the age of 33, I married my wife, Jill, and we have 2 children, Nicholas and Mark. My family is extremely important to me, and they have helped push me on whenever I needed it. My writing career has been a whole other story. I've written many big hits, and the Alex Rider series was probably the biggest. I've also won 2 awards because of these books, the Lancashire and Hampshire Book Awards. My career has been extremely successful so far, and I'm planning to make it even better. Thank you.
How many people do you know who have written a best-selling book, turned it into a major motion picture, and earned a 6-figure income, all before the age of 21? Not many, I'm sure, but such was my teen life. My name is Christopher Paolini, and I was born on November 17th, 1983. My parents' names are Kenneth and Talita. I'm originally from Los Angeles, but was raised in Montana. My mother used her knowledge as a teacher to homeschool me and my sister Angela. I started to write short stories about dragons and magic and heroes. When my sister and I reached high school level, we entered the American School Independent Study Program. I finished the program when I was 15, but postponed going to college. I decided to take my writing one step further and start writing a full-length novel, the first in a series of 4. This book would be called Eragon. Before I started writing, I got a hold of any books on writing technique that I could find. Some of these books were Characters in Viewpoint by Orson Scott Card, the Writer's Handbook series, and Story by Robert McKee. To get an idea of the story I'd be telling, I wrote a 9-page plotline for the entire series. It took me a year to write the first draft of Eragon, and when I showed the manuscript to my parents, they really liked it. They decided to publish it with their home-based publishing company, Paolini International LLC. To publicize Eragon, my father and I traveled to over 135 schools, libraries, and bookstores. All the while, I was dressed in a medieval outfit of billowy black pants, a red shirt, boots, and a green cowl. Okay. Where is it? Luckily, author Carl Hazen noticed the book and he enjoyed it. He then showed it to his publisher, Alfred A. Knopf. Alfred offered to publish the whole series, which required another editing of it, and a new cover was drawn. The second edition of Eragon was released on August 23rd, 2003. It quickly became #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. The second book in the series is called Eldest and was released exactly 2 years after the first book on August 23rd, 2005. It also quickly made its way to the top of the New York Times bestseller list. The third book, The Singer, was released on September 20th, 2008. The fourth book in the series, called Inheritance, and was released on November 8th, 2011. I'm 32 years old now, and I'm planning a 5th book in the series. I'm also planning to write a sci-fi book that should be coming out in 1 to 2 years.
Why, hello there. Please excuse me. My brain isn't good as it used to be, seeing that I'm 50 years dead. So, please excuse me if I resort to my cards very often. My name is J.R.R. Tolkien. I was born on January 3rd of 1892 in Bloemfontein, South Africa. Unfortunately, when I was about 4 years of age, my father died of rheumatic fever. My mother had no reason to stay in South Africa, so off we went to England. We stayed in the rural hamlet of Sarehole, just south of Birmingham. Sadly, my mother died of diabetes in 1904. Our good friend, Father Francis, took over, and put us with Mrs. Faulkner. She raised us from there on out. About 4 years later, I met a wonderful young woman named Edith Bratt. We immediately became friends, but as Father Francis saw this friendship deepen, he forbade me from seeing her until I was 21 years old. In 1911, I went to Exeter College at Oxford. There, I studied the classics and later English language and literature. Then, the Great War broke out in August of 1914. I did not rush to join the war, however. I stayed in Oxford and achieved a first-class degree in June of 1915. Eventually, though, I succumbed to the call of war. Just before I was sent off, I married Edith on March 22nd, 1916. After 4 months of brutal trench warfare, I succumbed to trench fever, a typhus-like infection common in unsanitary conditions. I was sent back to England, where I spent a month in a hospital in Birmingham. After the armistice was signed, I taught in many different places until 1925, when the professorship of Anglo-Saxon at Oxford fell vacant. I applied for the post and I was accepted. Eventually, when I was grading papers, I wrote on one of them, "In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit." This gave birth to a beautiful story that I would tell my children for years, and it was eventually published as The Hobbit in 1937. It was immediately a success, and everyone begged me to write another one. This would turn into a 16-year-long journey of creating The Lord of the Rings, published in 1954 and 1955. It became popular rapidly, and I became rather rich rather quickly. Unfortunately, though, no one can live forever. On the 29th of November, 1971, Edith died, and I returned to Oxford. I died on the 2nd of September, 1973, 2 years after my dear Edith. My legacy is carried on through my 4 children, John, Michael, Christopher, and Priscilla Tolkien. I thank you very much for listening to my life story. Farewell.
Okay, yeah. So my name is Dwayne Michael Carter, or Little Wayne. And right now I'm ready to tell you about my friend Drake, right? He's the guy from Hotline Bling. It all started in October 24th, 1986. That was the year before. He was from Toronto, Canada, and okay. And now his parents, one of them, his dad, is named Dennis Graham, who was the backup drummer for Jerry Lee Lewis. And his mother was Sandy Graham, who also came from a very musical family. And she was white and Jewish, but So he was black and Jewish, and it was super trippy, right? Okay. So he had a classmate in his, So when he was 5 years old, his parents divorced, and he moved in with his mother in Forest Hill, which is a suburb outside of Toronto. And in high school, he got made fun of a lot for being black and Jewish. And I know. And his sophomore year, he had a classmate who said if there was whose dad said, he was an agent, right? And his dad said, if there was anybody who could make you laugh, give him to me. And Drake made him laugh so hard that the kid peed, right? So then he had an audition for the Canadian TV show Degrassi, and he got the part. His character was Jimmy Brooks and got shot in the back and was paralyzed. Crazy. He rapped a tiny bit on the show and released mixtapes every single year since 2006. And I discovered him in 2008 and signed him with Young Money Records. And the show ended in 2009, and that's when his career went crazy. And even though he was super successful, he didn't always get along with the other rappers. And one night in 2012, in a nightclub, he got in a huge fight with Chris Brown, and all these other people got injured, and it was so crazy. And right now, he just finished feuding with Meek Mill, and that was really funny because Meek Mill couldn't do it. And Drake released all these diss tracks, and okay. And now Meek Mill is feuding with 50 Cent, and that's really funny because neither one of them came around. Alright. And now Drake is gonna release a new album called Views from the Six, and that should be fire.
All I want is an education, and I'm afraid of no one. I'm Malala Yousafzai. I was born on July 12, 1997 in Mignoora, a town in the Swat district of Pakistan. My father named me Malala after Pashtun heroine Malala. She rallied the Pakistani army to fight against the British in their war for independence. During the battle, she was sadly killed, but her story of courage still lives on. When I was 10 years old, my beautiful hometown was invaded. The Taliban destroyed or shut down almost all girls' schools. They made new laws that if you did not follow them, you would be called a non-believer of the Prophet and were killed in the town square. When I was 11 years old, my father took me to a local press club to protest the closing schools. That's where I gave my first speech. How dare the Taliban take away my basic right to education? It was publicized all throughout Pakistan. I was very close to my father. We would stay up late and talk politics after my brothers had gone to bed. When there was a wedding, me and my friends would draw chemical formulas and math equations on our hands in henna instead of flowers and butterflies. We wanted to show that a girl could be smart as well as beautiful. The Taliban issued a death threat against me, but I didn't think they would target a young girl. They were so powerful, it just seemed beneath them. I started a blog about life under the Taliban rule for the BBC in 2009. That year, I began to speak out more and more. I would advocate for girls' education on TV and interviews and during speeches. I was also featured in a New York Times documentary. By 2011, I was nominated for an International Children's Peace Prize and received Pakistan's National Youth Peace Prize. That's when people really started to take interest in me. On October 9, 2012, I was shot in the head by a Taliban gunman coming home to school on a bus. My friends and I were sitting on the back of the bus when it suddenly stopped. The Taliban gunman came to the back and asked, "Where's Malala?" Our friends looked at me. The man shot a single bullet into my head at point blank. Somehow, I survived but was in critical condition. I was taken to the hospital in the UK for more surgeries. I was discharged from the hospital on January 2013, and my family met me in the UK. I had months of physical therapy and many surgeries to repair my paralyzed face. Somehow, I had no major brain damage and started school in Birmingham. The terrorists thought they could change my aims and stop my ambitions, but nothing changed in my life except this. Weakness, fear, and hopelessness died. Strength, power, and courage were born. I wish I could return to Pakistan, but the Taliban have publicly announced that if I come back, I'll be shot. I sadly know it's true. I was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize, and I am now the youngest person ever to receive it. In 2013, I established the Malala Fund. My father and I are now global advocates for millions of girls denied a formal education. On my 16th birthday, I gave a speech to the United Nations. I do not hate the Talib who shot me. Even if there was a gun in my hand and he stands in front of me, I would not shoot him. This is the compassion that I have learned from Muhammad, the prophet of mercy, Jesus Christ, and Lord Buddha. This is the legacy of change I inherited from Martin Luther King, Nelson Mandela, and Muhammad Ali. This is the philosophy of nonviolence I have learned from Gandhi, Aga Khan, and Mother Teresa. And this is the forgiveness that I have learned from my mother and father. This is what my soul is telling me. Be peaceful and love everyone.
I am Sam. Sam I am. I'm the guy from Green Eggs and Ham. In 1960, Dr. Seuss wrote me from just 50 words from a list that was simply the words that young children know how to read. The love of his books just grew like a weed. On March the 2nd, 1904, in Massachusetts, Ted Geisel was born. He got his great writing from his mother's rhymes and became a great artist from his father's designs. Our friend Dr. Seuss spent time at the zoo drawing silly creatures like thingamazoos. Later, he grew to become a scout. His grandfather had very little doubt that little Ted would win the sale of war bonds, but with the pros of winning came some cons. Theodore Roosevelt gave medals to most, but little Ted Geisel was toast. They ran out of medals and Ted just stood, afraid of the stage forever he would. Then for the paper he wrote and he drew, funny cartoons in colors like blue. In 1925 to Dartmouth he went, he met his wife Helen and struggled with rent. He worked making ads for a business called Flit. They killed lots of bugs with his slogan of wit. Then off to the army for 7 years straight, writing films for the soldiers to help them be great. He made documentaries that told of the war, and then he wrote books more and more. From Gerald McBoing Boing to Horton and the Who's, The Cat in the Hat, and The Lorax too. He wrote over 60 books, and all of them had very great hooks. He never had children, but he liked to amuse them, the best children's author, so he got a big emblem. The first children's book author to win the Pulitzer Prize, all of his books were very wise. Oh, The Places You'll Go, he wrote before he passed. He wrote that graduation book in 1990 was his last. In 1991, Dr. Seuss was gone, but his books are still here and will always live on. Try them, and you may. Try them, and you may, I say.